I remember those early days when I, Michael, had just begun my career in law enforcement in one of the major cities in the United States. Life in this sprawling metropolis, where skyscrapers reach high into the sky and the streets never succumb to monotony, gave me a constant sense of movement and challenge. From the moment I first donned my uniform and took the oath, I knew that my life was about to change forever, both personally and professionally. Amid nights spent patrolling the streets, I found moments for self-reflection, pondering my goals, family, and above all, my beloved Emily. It was her warmth, her genuine laughter, and her sincere care that made me realize that behind every call and duty lay the yearning for love and understanding. Emily and I met a few years ago at a charity event where people gathered with the hope of making a difference in our city. She was volunteering there, and her energy, confidence, and beauty immediately drew me in. In her eyes, I saw a reflection of tenderness and strength, a combination that seemed almost unattainable in my harsh yet steadfast world as an officer. That evening marked the beginning of our gradual but steady closeness, which grew into a deep mutual respect and trust. We spent countless evenings beneath starlit skies, discussing our dreams, ambitions, and simply savoring moments fate had bestowed upon us. Never did I imagine then that this seemingly fairy tale romance would soon become the backdrop for a tragedy that would upend my life. During those days, I learned how to balance a demanding career with family life, a life where every evening promised a quiet domestic bliss. My colleagues often remarked that I was a model officer, always responsible and devoted to my duty. Yet, despite the praise and the confidence in tomorrow, I couldn't shake the feeling that a hidden drama lingered nearby, an unspoken anxiety that crept into the quiet moments. Thoughts of the past, lost dreams, and even a sliver of doubt that perfect happiness might be fleeting haunted me. Every shift, every incident left its mark on my soul, from the joy of saving lives to the indescribable pain of loss. But it was precisely these experiences that made me stronger, and my love for Emily seemed like a bright beacon capable of dispelling the darkness even in the direst of nights. Just as the city never sleeps, its streets always brimming with surprises, my life too was full of unexpected turns. Emily and I dreamed of a future together, plans built on the foundation of trust and fidelity. Every shared day cemented my belief that fate had arranged our meeting for a reason. Until that fateful evening, I had never imagined that during a period when I was meant to be the beacon of stability and justice, a twist of fate would shatter everything I believed in. A quiet premonition, like a faint echo in the depths of my soul, always lingered, almost imperceptible, and I tried to ignore it, trusting that true love was impervious to betrayal. The first months of our marriage passed in a calm, almost idyllic harmony, where every morning began with a strong cup of coffee and lengthy discussions about our future. Emily, with her kind gaze and infectious smile, always managed to bring warmth to even the coldest winter day. Together, we endured both joyous moments and trials, convinced that any hardship could be overcome if love and belief prevailed. Yet, even within that cozy atmosphere, there remained a slight shadow of doubt, a reminder that life is full of unforeseen turns and that nothing lasts forever, no matter how unbreakable bonds may seem. This opening part of my tale is filled with tenderness and light, describing those blissful times when I was convinced that our union was sacred and unbreakable. Every moment of those days fit into a perfect mosaic, where even the smallest details held special significance. Late dinners by candlelight, leisurely walks in the rain, and silent glances laden with unspoken thoughts formed a beautiful symphony, promising eternal joy. I had no inkling, however, that fate was already weaving its tangled web, hinting at the storm that would soon shatter our idyll. That strange premonition, though barely noticeable, remained as a subtle hint of impending change, a change I was blissfully unaware of. Despite these subtle warnings, I chose to live in the present, confident that love could overcome any obstacle, even those we had only dreamed of but never expected to face. Time passed, and life continued on its path, weaving new chapters into my story. I vividly recall that night when I was on duty and received a radio call, a report from one of the residential areas about excessively loud music and raucous festivities. As always, the call stirred in me a blend of determination and apprehension. Every shift had become a test, and I was accustomed to seeing each call for help as something greater, perhaps an event that could mean saving a life or restoring order. That night, when the clock struck the deep hours, I silently donned my uniform, unaware that this call would mark a turning point in my life. On the way to the scene, my thoughts drifted to the many nights I had spent patrolling the city streets and to the myriad stories hidden behind every closed door. The flashing sirens reflected off the wet asphalt, creating the illusion that time was fleeting and fate ever-changing. I remembered every detail: the crackle on the radio, the muted roar of the patrol car's engine, and the strange foreboding that crept into my mind as I neared the location. Upon arrival, I saw a house bathed in the soft glow of streetlights and immediately sensed that something was amiss. The door was slightly ajar, and a dim light seeped through the windows, as if trying to warn me of an impending disaster. I knocked, and a voice from inside calmly invited me in, first with calm assurance, then with a hint of uncertainty. Unable to quell the mounting tension within me, I stepped into the house, confident that my professional resolve would once again see me through. Yet, even as I crossed the threshold, I was seized by a strange premonition, as though every detail of the evening had been preordained. Step by step, I made my way through the hallways, listening intently until I finally reached the room where the music was particularly loud. My emotions swirled, from disciplined duty to a profound inner dread that I couldn't fight. There was something unnatural about the scene that made me slow my pace and strain my ears to catch the voices emanating from within. And then, through the half-light and muffled music, I heard voices that sounded foreign in the oppressive silence of the night. Whispers, chuckles, and low murmurs gradually merged into something more ominous than mere revelry. Gripping my weapon, I wasted no time, moving from one room to another until I finally stopped at a door behind which everything seemed both familiar and alien. My heart pounded, and my thoughts vacillated between professional duty and personal agony. I could not have imagined then that I was about to encounter something that would shatter my entire world. Methodically analyzing every movement and sound, I prepared myself for what was to come, oblivious to the fact that I was about to face a revelation capable of unmaking all I had believed in. Inside the room, the setting appeared ordinary at first glance. A couple relaxing amidst the low hum of evening music, seemingly trying to escape the everyday grind. Yet the closer I got, the more evident it became that something was terribly wrong. My ingrained instincts, honed over years of service, whispered that I was no longer in an ordinary setting, but rather at the heart of an emotional tempest, where lives collide and shatter without warning. Taking a few more measured steps, I hesitated in the doorway, trying desperately to comprehend what I was witnessing. That moment, when every sound assumed a deeper meaning, when time itself seemed to slow, remains etched in my memory as the minute when I discovered something that would forever alter my existence. My mind raced with thoughts, from mundane daily worries to the most deeply hidden fears, all merging into a torrent that signaled an approaching calamity. Without yet understanding the true nature of what was unfolding, I instinctively knew that every second spent in that house would bring unforeseen consequences into my life. Every sound and every rustle took on the weight of my inner torment, and I gripped my duty belt tighter, readying myself to face what had been long concealed in the shadows of the night. That night shift, like so many before it, promised to be routine, yet fate had chosen to deliver a bitter revelation, one that would forever redefine the value of trust. When I finally crossed the threshold of that inner room, my eyes met a sight that would be seared into my consciousness for years to come. Before me unfolded a scene that I had never imagined even in my worst nightmares. There, at the center of the room on a soft couch, sat my Emily, my dear beloved wife, whose very name had once filled my heart with joy and peace. And she was not alone. Next to her, as if an unwelcome stroke on an already tragic canvas, sat a man whose presence immediately filled me with a fierce sense of dread and anger. His face, exuding a calm confidence, stood in stark contrast to the chaos of emotions that surged within me, scrambling to comprehend such an unimaginable betrayal. Had this been a mere coincidence, Or was it the inevitable climax of a storm that had long been brewing, destined to shatter our seemingly unbreakable bond? My hands involuntarily clenched into fists while my mind raced, desperately trying to reconcile what I was witnessing. I stood frozen, paralyzed, not only by the shock of betrayal, but also by the agonizing realization that what was unfolding was utterly unacceptable. Every fiber of my being rebelled against accepting the awful truth that my Emily, the woman who had sworn to remain faithful, could commit such an unforgivable act. In that moment, the very principles of my duty, which I had so proudly served, seemed pointless. What use is protecting the law if it cannot shield a man from the pain of loss? The man sitting beside her, whose name I later learned was Brandon, exuded an unsettling calm, as if his presence here were not only justified but somehow inevitable. His expression, unwavering and cool, belied the storm of emotion that roiled inside me. Each passing second intensified the storm of feelings within me, from anger to a devastating sorrow, from disbelief to the gut-wrenching pain of betrayal that struck like a knife at the very core of my being. My thoughts swirled as I tried desperately to regain control of myself, for I knew in that moment that I could not afford to lose control, no matter the cost. It was then that time itself seemed to halt, leaving me with not only physical pain, but an indelible emotional wound that forever altered my perception of loyalty and love. I recalled the moments when Emily's love had uplifted me, when every word and every look had reassured me that together we could weather any storm. But now, in the stark light of that grim night, I recognized that I was standing before an undeniable truth, one that would forever change our lives. Those minutes stretched into an eternity, as if the entire world had paused around me, save for the pounding of my heart echoing in the oppressive silence. Every second was imbued with the realization of loss, every unspoken word laden with unmet sorrow. In that moment, I, a police officer accustomed to the objective harshness of duty, was confronted with the most personal and excruciating tragedy of all, an act of betrayal that defied logic and the law alike. My heart pounded unbearably, and my mind struggled to make sense of the calamity that had shattered every belief I once held dear. Even the background music, which earlier served as a mere accompaniment to the night's routine, now transformed into a sinister symphony of pain that tore at me from within. In that overwhelming silence, I could no longer distinguish the boundaries between duty and personal anguish. The events of that fateful night set off a chain reaction whose effects I felt for months to come. I was faced with the most difficult choice: how to respond to a betrayal that not only struck at my family, but also tarnished my professional honor. Recalling the countless moments when I had devoted my life to upholding the law, I suddenly sensed an inexplicable shift, a rupture in my life's direction. The sense of duty that had been nurtured over years of service now clashed painfully with a reality where personal relationships lay in ruins. An overwhelming mixture of guilt, anger, and sorrow enveloped me like a dense fog, forcing me to confront the harrowing question: how could someone I trusted and relied on commit such an act of treachery? That evening, I struggled to maintain my composure, yet within me a storm of conflicting emotions raged uncontrollably. A verbal confrontation with Brandon erupted, during which I demanded explanations, only to be met with vague excuses that felt as empty as they were unconvincing. His calm tone and measured gestures did little to assuage the pain that each word deepened within me. I could feel my hands trembling and my voice betraying the uncertainty I so desperately tried to hide behind the facade expected of me. It felt as though the entire world had conspired against me, and every detail of that tragic scene appeared to have been meticulously orchestrated long before this fateful night. Emily's gaze, heavy with regret and a silent acknowledgement of her wrongdoing, spoke of a truth that words could no longer disguise. Between us lay an invisible chasm, filled with sorrow and unuttered grief, a chasm that signified the imminent dissolution of everything we once cherished. In the hushed hours of the night, when calm should have reigned, I knew I must act, for the stakes were not only my career, but the integrity of my very soul. Each measured word and cautious movement became a desperate effort to maintain control before the consequences spiraled into irreversible destruction. Those moments, etched in my memory, served as a constant reminder that even in the face of unbearable betrayal, a spark of resolve still burned within me. An inner struggle not just for justice, but for the very will to continue living despite the heartbreak. I recall the moment when, after our conversation dwindled into silence, I finally stepped out of that house with an overwhelming sense of emptiness and the inevitability of a rift. The world around me seemed alien, as though reality were washing away in a torrent of blurred images and echoes of sorrow. The journey home became a slow procession, where every minute resonated with the anguish of that harrowing moment. With every street and every passing billboard, I was reminded of the once vibrant love that now lay in tatters. I endeavored to collect myself, clinging to the strength honed by years of service, yet grief and disappointment seeped into every fiber of my being. Even the streetlights seemed paler compared to the radiant warmth our love once exuded. With every step, I felt the weight of an enormous loss, not only of trust, but of the very future I had once envisioned. The internal torment triggered by that encounter forced me to question the very meaning of everything that had happened. The night devolved into a painful procession of thoughts, each minute marked by the agony of regret. I returned to my apartment in search of refuge, only to find that the familiar corridors bore silent witness to the fact that that fateful evening had irrevocably altered our world. I struggled to imagine a future where trust could once again shield me from the cruel bite of reality, a future where the shadow of infidelity could be banished by hope alone. Those memories, heavy as dark clouds, loomed overhead, leaving behind an ever-present sense of isolation. Time moved slowly, and I realized that my life would never return to what it once was. No law, however just, could erase the pain of betrayal. The days that followed became a test of my endurance, a trial that stretched for weeks. I tried to find within myself the strength to recover, yet every morning brought a fresh realization that the world I had once trusted was too harsh and fragile to bear such deception. My colleagues noticed that I had become withdrawn and quiet. My familiar smile replaced by tense, troubled looks, and each shift at the precinct was accompanied by a profound sense of loss. The nights I once navigated with confidence and calm now brought back relentless memories of that dreadful moment, when every certainty about love and loyalty had been obliterated, like sand slipping through my fingers. Every conversation with my superiors and fellow officers was a painful reminder that the personal and the professional are inextricably linked. Questions from my partner were less about the specifics of that night and more about my state of mind. "Are you okay, Michael?" And, "You must keep going, no matter what." But how could I conceal the anguish that split my heart into shards? I attempted to bury my emotions in my work, in the daily task of maintaining order and enforcing the law, an effort to submerge the unbearable pain under an endless list of duties. Every street I patrolled, every incident I responded to, resonated like an echo of that tragic night. I began to wonder if I had ignored the small signs in our relationship for too long, signs that had once seemed insignificant, but now loomed as bitter omens of the inevitable disaster. In quieter moments, I would ponder what I might have said or done if I had known that the world, and every smile, every kind word, held deeper meaning than a fleeting moment of loss. Emily, the woman with whom I had shared dreams of the future, now felt like a stranger. The very person I had loved with all my heart turned traitor who shattered our hopes and plans. At that moment, I felt as though under the cover of night lay not only a crime, but a betrayal by life itself, an unforgivable treachery that time and even the law could not mend. The cool night air, the soft glow of street lamps, even the whisper of leaves rustling in the wind, all brought vivid recollections of that ominous night when betrayal invaded my life and left its indelible mark. Every solitary minute spent in reflection became an endless torture, leaving a wound in my soul that no amount of time could heal. Over time, I began to understand that nothing remains the same, even if you fight with every fiber of your being for ideals that once seemed eternal. Realizing that suppressing my anguish with the demands of duty no longer sufficed, I turned inward in search of answers. Every sleepless night spent poring over old letters, photographs, and cherished mementos became a lesson that demanded a reevaluation of my entire life. I recalled the happy moments, long conversations over dinner, the laughter that filled our home, and dreams that once felt so real. But along with those memories came an indescribable sorrow. The pain of betrayal, now an inseparable part of who I was. Every small detail, whether the aroma of freshly brewed coffee or the soft whisper of night wind, transported me back to the moment when everything I knew about love was cast into doubt. The service I once considered a sanctuary of law and order had transformed into an arena for internal conflict, where every mission became a trial of my spirit. The internal dialogues, an endless stream of questions and answers, reflected my struggle to comprehend how one could ever forgive such a deep betrayal. Answers slipped away like smoke, leaving behind only the bitter aftertaste of loss. I sought to learn how to live anew, adapting to a world where trust was as fragile as thin ice beneath one's feet. Yes, I am a policeman, but even I was unprepared for the merciless hand fate could deal to your emotions. In these moments of solitude, I had to confront my reflection in the mirror. A reflection that revealed all my fears, doubts, and the relentless pain that refused to subside. I realized there were no simple fixes for wounds inflicted by betrayal, and no instantaneous healing that could mend the cracks in the soul. All that remained was the ongoing struggle to preserve my dignity and to find a way to trust again. In doing so, I began to seek solace not only in my work, but also in the company of those who understood my pain, in the hope of discovering that life goes on, even after the deepest losses. My story, a scar serving as a reminder of how easily the most precious things can be lost, slowly transformed into a lesson that taught me to live with the reality of change. And now, as I look back, I see how those fateful events became the turning point for me. Even though the sting of betrayal still burns within, I have found the strength to move forward. Life after betrayal turned out to be a long, arduous journey, each encounter and every trial testing my belief in myself. I continued to work at the precinct, and despite the personal tragedy, I gradually understood that my life could not be defined solely by moments of pain. Colleagues, friends, and even strangers lent their support, demonstrating that even during the darkest times, there exists a light capable of dispelling the gloom of isolation. In this process of reevaluation, I confronted the harshest truth, that there is no going back to the past, nor is there any desire to change it at all costs. Recognizing that life goes on despite everything allowed me to view the future with renewed hope. Embracing my pain, I sought avenues for healing, setting aside old grudges, engaging in heartfelt conversations with those who understood me, and most importantly, working sincerely on myself. I began attending sessions with a psychologist and started writing a journal where I recorded every emotion, permitting myself to fully experience each feeling until it finally passed. Though the path to healing was long and fraught with difficulty, I gradually realized that wisdom is born of trials, not from an unruffled existence. Now, looking back, I see that those fateful events marked a turning point, a moment when, even though the bitterness of betrayal still scorched me from within, I found the strength to move on. Life after betrayal has come to resemble a long, arduous journey, where every encounter and every new challenge tested my belief in myself. I continued my duty at the precinct, knowing that despite personal tragedy, each new day allowed me to understand that I must not be defined solely by the pain of the past. With each call and every person I met, I searched not only for solace, but also for the understanding that life is a complex tapestry, where even the most agonizing events form part of a larger unified destiny. I keep serving, aware that I am not alone in this world, that there are always people ready to lend support, even when your heart is shattered by sorrow. Every shift, every call became not just an execution of duty, but a lesson in forgiveness, learning to forgive mistakes, to forgive myself, and perhaps, with time, to forgive those who cause pain. Deep down, I realize that betrayal is not the end, but rather a turning point after which a new chapter may begin if one finds the strength to accept change. Reflecting on the past, I see how the love that blossomed in our early days was so bright and promising that even the worst infidelity could not entirely extinguish its flame. Memories of how Emily and I once dreamed of a future together, though darkened by the pain of betrayal, now serve as a reminder. Life goes on, and every new dawn offers the chance to start anew. This is not merely a story of loss, it is a tale of struggle, of how even the deepest wounds can become the foundation for rebirth if you do not give up on yourself and on the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In these quiet moments of solitude, as the city slowly awakens outside my window, I allow myself to think. Perhaps betrayal is nothing more than a trial that teaches us to be more human, more aware in our emotions and in our choices. Every pain I have endured has become a small stone in the foundation of my new life, a life in which, even after the worst betrayal, solace can be found in the hope of a better future. Today, I know that no matter how heavy the future may seem, it will bring new opportunities for happiness, because a real man never surrenders to fate, even if that fate whirls your heart into a maelstrom of pain and loss. This was my path, a path where loss and pain merged with the endless quest to find new meaning in life. I continue to move forward with hope and faith, knowing that every dark chapter in my story will eventually give way to a brighter future filled with confidence, love, and authenticity.